Oh, 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 oh. Lift your head, feel the pride, we've come so far. A voice is strong, shining bright like a guiding star. Built with love, bound by truth, it's who we are. New journal and guide, we've raised the bar.
Welcome to NJGPOD, the official podcast of New Journaling Guide. Today we have two special treats for you. We're thrilled to have Hampton Roads poet Delores Dudley, a poet, writer, and community leader, join us in celebration of Poetry Month. With a career spanning decades of service, Delores has shared her talent for poetry while also impacting her community through her work in education and faith. We're excited to hear her thoughts on the power of poetry, its role in community, and her personal journey. And here to conduct the interview, we have the official host of NJGPOD, New Journaling Guide's publisher, Brenda H. Andrews. Stay tuned for a special episode of NJGPOD.
Every voice, every name.
Hello, Miss Dudley. How are you?
I'm fine. I feel pretty good today, and I thank you so much for allowing me to have this activity.
Well, thank you. Let me tell you, before I say anything further, I have to thank you for the poetry that you have submitted over the years to New Journaling Guide. You've done such a beautiful job. We could just have a whole newspaper of your poetry because you hit practically every part of our lives, every part of who we are as women, as who we are as African Americans, who we are as people. And we just really thank you for being a part of the New Journaling Guide family and for sharing with us today on our NJG pod. So that being said, let's just jump right into it. Miss Dudley, you identify yourself as Hampton Roads poet, and it's a very, very appropriate title for you. Can you tell us and tell our audience a little bit about how poetry became such an important part of your life and what inspired you to start writing poetry?
Well, the first time I ever wrote a poem was in the fourth grade. A teacher named Mrs. Lizzie Leathers Godley, she just asked me to write a poem. We were doing a play, like a little pageant. It was on Greece. And anyway, she asked me, and I was able to write one, and I don't know exactly why. It just was there, even in that early time. And then as time went on, different teachers would say something. We'd have maybe poetry in class, and they would ask all of us to write poetry, something like that. All of us write a poem or something. But they just seemed, when I write mine, they would think it was pretty good. And so it just kept following me that way. They kept following me that way.
So,
and then
go on.
Well, I kept on, and then I had a sister. She's now deceased. She said, "Why you write poetry and all, but why don't you share it?" Because I didn't think, maybe it's so worth sharing. But she'd say, "You need to do that. You have a gift with that. Do that." And then there was an elder. When I was older, say in my 30s, there was this lady at church. She's now passed. Her name was Mary Battle, and she said something about my poetry. She was a deaconess at Third Baptist. Well, what happened? And one time I was out, and I saw her, and we were talking. She was talking to someone else, and she said, "This is Miss Dudley, and she's a poet." And I said to myself at that time, "Come on now, why do you say that?" She said, "Oh, but she said, "Oh, but you are one. The words you write, you don't understand it yourself." And it's like she spoke it into being. They say the power of the tongue has a lot to do with things. You can speak life, or you can speak, something else. But she just said that. She said, "You're a poet, I'm telling you." And then at church, Third Baptist Church, that's where I was at the time. And I would, they'd ask me to write things, and I'd pray about it, and I would write something, It would be like they started something like that.
Well,
And also, Mrs. Johnny Fleming in latter years, she also said something about the poetry.
I have a little idea about how you were able to write something that was inspired from a spiritual vein, a spiritual lesson. You said one of the ladies said you were writing words that you didn't even know. You didn't think about them, but they flowed, they came forward. I had a little writing experience with poetry about actually it's time passes, so it may be 15 years ago now. And I had never really written poetry before or since, to be perfectly honest, but the inspiration was there at that particular season of my life. And
Right.
when I look at what I wrote, I look at it, I said, did I write that? And so I understand it's something that is beyond your conscious thinking about what you're writing. It flows.
Yes,
How
that's right.
how would you describe that?
Well, I'd say prose. Prose always touches a person's mind and body, but poetry, as you said, had a little note that it touches the spirit of the person.
Mm.
Something in the spirit comes up. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we went to James Madison. They had a thing for teachers several years back, and we had all these English teachers in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked us to describe things, and you could do it poetically if possible. And anyway, not trying to brag or anything, but we had to say our poems, and I said that poem, read a poem, and they were clapping and saying, "Where do those words come from?" It just comes in your spirit. It's a spiritual thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It
I
is.
would agree. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
I know that over here in Norfolk, where we're located, there's a group that you may or may not be familiar with. It's called Teens with a Purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
Deidre Love is the person who founded and operates that agency for young people. And they use
Oh.
poetry to tell stories, and they use poetry to get people involved in different kinds of their reality, young people's
Mm-hmm.
reality. And so, how
Mm-hmm.
how do you see poetry impacting today's youth, especially in perhaps faith-based communities? Or how can poetry impact that segment of the population?
Well, I think that young people can be impacted more than others because I think when they're young like that, they're more open to general ideas. Not to say that older people are not,
Mm-hmm.
but I notice that they're very much able. They want to be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with young people, and many of them really do have a heart for giving. All they want to give. They
Mm-hmm.
want to make a difference. They really do. They're serious, and they're very much about the heart. They have heartfelt ideas, and poetry can help them. For example, I have this poem. It's a dramatic poem. I'm not going to say the poem is very long, but it's a dramatic monologue, and that came from I think from me hearing some of the information of some of the students. Sometimes they would be weary about things, and it's very powerful. But I wouldn't dare say it today. It's very long and all, but they like that because they'll tell you things. They'll tell you things about their homes or what they're feeling. We have some really great young people who really want to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
However, we do have some that are they call them at-risk types, and they're angry. They're very angry, and but sometimes in their anger, they write a rap or they do something like that. But they do some type of poetry because that's poetry too, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed I've written poetry. I've written poems that I have message given. As soon as I say the first line, they pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
I just say the first line. Just the first line. It says, I die inside when I'm born, because mama don't want me, ain't no daddy around. I'm dead long before I return to the ground. And it goes on, and it talks about their feelings, the ones that are at risk, that they feel sometimes the people just don't pay them enough attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they want to go out and be a part of something, and sometimes, unfortunately, some of them get involved with things that are criminal, which is not good at all. Okay.
So you
So,
have worked with young people as a part of your career experience, haven't you?
oh my goodness, yes. I work I work with them through public speaking quite a bit. I was with the Optimist Club, and I was a coach for them, and they worked very well with that. And some of them even won scholarship money. In other words, I had at least 3 people to go to the top, and they went through and they did get scholarship money for school. As they worked on their materials and all like that.
How much of your time do you spend in poetry? Do you sit down and decide, okay, I think I'm going to, just call on the muse to help me to express a feeling or whatever? How do you get started?
Well, I'll use a sample novel form, just a few lines. Okay. I had since I was a teacher and working with them quite a bit, but when I watched Roots one night, and when Roots first came on, I couldn't really, it upset me. It was a little too raw for me and things like that. But about 2 years later, when it came on again, it was about the 3rd time or something, when they were trying to make Kuta Kinte say his name, I was home by myself, and they were just really being cruel. I mean, very cruel. And your name is what is a part of. I just felt I was sitting there. I started crying. I really did. I mean, crying like I don't know what. And 2 days later, I wrote, "They Came in Chains." Looking at those chains around the neck and the hands and around the middle section and then together, it was just alarming. But I really did. So I just said it. Just came out. They came in chains. They came alone, far from the shores that had been home, far from the arms that cradled babes, far from the love that had been shown them. Away from all that made them great, a wealth of heritage they lost, a cold and human price they paid. They came in chains. Upon the ships they sailed away from all of those of inner lightness, from all of those that came to know, from all the truth that came in blackness, from all the feelings of that place that had a warmth and special healing, from life alive with peace and grace they sailed away. They suffered agonies too great, dead to the world behind they were then, and years would yield nothing to say of what they were before they came here. Of native tongue, of native dress, of native mannerisms stripped down, no more to be but someone's slave, to serve the ignorance of hate now. So to America they came, like those before and those yet after. A people not so very strange, except they were the ones who came in chains. All that came 2 days after I kept looking at that picture like that, and I just broke down. Had to do it, had to write it. It just had to come out.
And
You
I,
know?
as you were reading that, I could see, I could visualize exactly what you were saying. And I love poetry. I love poetry
Okay.
because what you say in just a few words. Now, if an essay had been written about what
That's
you just
right.
did, a poem, it would be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages perhaps of written word, and it would
That's right.
require you to tap into your intellect, looking for just but when you do a
Mm-hmm.
poem, you're looking for just the right one
That's
word
right.
can
That's true.
say a million thoughts, so
That's so true.
I
That's true.
love it. I love poetry. Do you have
Well,
a
thanks.
favorite poet that you enjoy reading more than, or perhaps one or two?
Well, of course, uh, I had, as a child coming up, we read Wordsworth and things like Longfellow and Robert Frost. I like the fact that Robert Frost had that way of repetitive at the end, use the same line. That's a good thing to do. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, everybody remembers Maya Angelou, but
Yes.
mainly she's great. But with her, and I like Langston Hughes and all of them. I was an English teacher, but I also was an English major, so we were all had to read a lot of literature. I had to read a lot of literature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just now, the poem that I did say to you, I didn't read it. I memorized it. I
Mm.
memorized. I memorized it because when people ask me sometimes, I try to show my range. I write. I love. I'm a black woman. Love the idea of us and the strength of all of that we've done, and I like the poems of, lift every voice and sing. I like
Mm-hmm.
James Weldon Johnson's poetry and things like that, and he wrote that poem with his brother and all that. Brother made a song, but the thing is, I also like, I can write poems about trees, about anything. There was a lady when I first said I was a poet one time. She gave me 5 topics. And by the next day, God bless me, I wrote a poem about trees, a poem about the summertime. A lot of my mind is not like some people have a theme of like love, like Edgar Allan Poe. And he said he always wrote about death or love lost or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But with me, it's not like that. It's, I can write about violence. I can write about little babies being born. I can write about, I'm very versatile the way God gave it to me. That's the way I am. And so that helps too, the people like the poetry because I can write different things. Last summer, I used last summer one time because that's very short too. So I memorized it. When I remember last summer, the cries of the gulls would be new. The peace of the ocean's soft slumber would somehow refresh my heart too. When I remember last summer, that meeting of sun, wind, and sand, those toddlers who danced with the dawning, those lovers who walked hand in hand. When I remember last summer, I'll think as I thought times before, how awful the life without summer, how lonely when summer is over.
Mm. Well,
The-
I know you have the poetry that you have submitted to us at the Journaling Guide. We've covered. You have covered just about every topic someone could think of. We have one now on Lent that you sent in.
yeah,
We'll be putting that in the paper before
okay,
too many. Hopefully, we'll get it in next week. But
okay.
I love the idea that so you just speak in poetry, uh, whatever it is, whatever the
Yeah.
topic or theme. See, like with
Mm-hmm.
me, the poetry book, and I did a poetry book, one poetry
Oh,
book,
okay.
but
All
mine
right.
was all about it. In fact, the title of it was "The Seasons of Love," and it was all
Mm-hmm.
about the different seasons of love, the summer, winter, fall, and spring,
Oh, okay.
and how love follows those nature in how we see nature, whether it's fresh, exciting, or in winter. I think if I were to read one of the poems, it would say something like, winter is something you just have to try to get through so you can get to spring. But but beyond the love poetry, I have not taken the time. I suppose. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I might have some more poetry inside of me if I were to allow myself. But as the publisher of the Journaling Guide, my time is
I
occupied
know.
with so much of the prose type of writing as opposed to
Yes.
poetic writing that
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll get a chance to go somewhere on vacation and just let my poet side come through.
Yeah. And sometimes people, in my case, family members often would say something. For
Mm-hmm.
example, with President, I'm not going to read anymore, say any more of my poems, but with Obama, with President Obama, my brother-in-law, people were everybody was excited about everything, with him. And so he just said, do you think you could write a poem about President Obama? I said, I don't know. But I started, looking at the magazines. I saw a picture of this lady swinging this little boy around. It was a white lady, and and a little boy, cute little boy. But anyway, and that was his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, "Oh, this kid." And then they showed. I read some things about, and there was his father, and both the mother and father were, very much into education and all too, and there's different things. Then there was a picture of him over in Africa with some people. I said, "Well, this fella." So I got a profile of him in my mind, and I thought about it and how wonderful it would be that it was that like again back to the Bible part. It's like God took the blood from Africa and was able to, worked with his mother, blend with a Kansas woman, white woman at that, and mixed it and put that man on the throne of America. I saw it that way, you know. And I said, isn't that something? So that's the way I thought. He was
Right,
worth
right.
looking.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, but we'll be right back and finish up our conversation with Miss Delores Dudley, Hampton Roads poet.
For over a century, the New Journal and Guide has been the heartbeat of Hampton Roads, delivering news that shapes our community and resonates beyond. As the South's oldest Black-owned newspaper, we chronicle stories that matter, from local triumphs to national milestones, celebrating the rich tapestry of the African American experience, history, present, and future in one subscription. Stay informed and empowered. Subscribe today at thenewjournalandguide.com.
Raise the banner high, let it touch the sky. With every story told, no dream will die.
This is Brenda Andrews, the host of NJGPOD, the official podcast for the New Journal and Guide. And today I'm here with the poet, Hampton Roads poet, Delores Dudley, and we're having a wonderful conversation about how important poetry has been in her life and in the lives of other people. If you missed the first part, you would know that Miss Dudley has been doing this for a number of years, and she also has been awarded by so many different organizations. And I'm looking here that she is the recipient of the Albert Nelson Marquis Who's Who's Lifetime Achievement Award for excellence in the fields of evangelistic endeavors, community service, youth outreach. She's a published author of 2 books, her latest being Tribute, a book of poems that was released back in 2020. Her works, her articles, her poems have been published over the years in newspapers to include the Citizens Press, America, the Virginian Pilot, the Portsmouth Times, and of course, the New Journal and Guide. We love Delores Dudley here at the New Journal and Guide. Her book, Tribute, is a book of poems. It's a #1 bestseller. It's on Amazon. And so it has earned a 5-star rating. She has just a host of blessings that have been bestowed upon her because she has shared who she is and has allowed God to work through her. And we're talking about Poetry Month because April is Poetry Month. And Miss Dudley, in your opinion, why do you think Poetry Month is important, so important, especially for African American communities?
I think it's very important because we learn a lot about your history and everything. A lot of times doing that type of month, people write poems quite a bit about our experience that was very different from the other immigrants that came here. Because we weren't trying to get here.
It was not our choice.
Anybody have chains on your neck, your hands, your
That's
feet,
right.
your body?
That's right.
You're not trying to get here, But God blessed us to get here.
Yes.
And we're very soulful people. We're very soulful people, And I think that's good too. And I think the young people, they can relate. I think even, as you said, you did it so brilliantly a little while ago. You were saying a person will look at something and say it in prose, but poetry just hits to the spirit of something. You can't help it.
Yes,
yes. It's the spirit. Somebody can say someone was hurt. I saw someone fall on the ground. But the poet's going to say, there's a person I saw, and I was so sad. And, the soul of the person that I could see, it made me sad and things like that. The words that are going to come out are going to be different words. They're going to be more. There's more imagery in it all the time.
Yes. It hits right to the heart.
Right to the core.
Right to the heart. So during Poetry Month, do you have an opportunity to share your poetry a little more than you do at other times of the year, or is that something that is important to you?
It's important. I haven't had as much time in the latter few years, but there was a time. Well, they asked me to come down to the Fine Arts in downtown Portsmouth. I was the key poet back. That's been several years ago now, though, and share my poetry. And it was around this time of year, and they told me I could always come back, get back in touch with them, and like that, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
last year and all, I was a little under the weather, and so I didn't do it as much. But I have been asked to come out and to share my poetry, and I've done that 3 or 4 times, I guess, like that.
Well, you're sharing it through the journaling guide, and I know that our readers enjoy what you have to say. I know I enjoy when it comes to us because we're
Mm-hmm.
never quite sure what you're going to talk about, but we do know that those special times of the year, like now,
Yeah.
as I said, we have a poem on Lent. And during
Mm-hmm.
Black History Month, we know we're going to get something related. During Women History Month, we're going to get something related
Yeah,
to
I was
who
like
we
that.
are as Black women in this
Yeah.
country. So it's just an exciting, really just to read your poetry and know that you have spent a lifetime since the fourth grade. You
That's
said
since the 4th grade. And
sharing.
people would say, I'm sorry. But I always tell the children all the time, look at your gift. Everybody has a gift or gifts. Every single person, a gift
Hmm.
or gift from God, God-given gifts. And I ask the children sometimes to watch that as you come along because He gave them to you for a reason, to build up the body of the church and all.
Yes, yes.
And hmm and also I forgot to tell you, I did do evangelism with the church some years back. I used
Hmm.
to go to these nursing homes. I went to 4 nursing homes once a week for about 7 to 10 years, and I just would go after work. I'd go because at church they tell you about as you grow and get older too. Sometimes you get. Well, I had a brother-in-law who had been in a nursing home, and I had gone to visit him a lot, and then it made me see the situation in nursing homes because many people don't have people visiting them in nursing homes like they should. The
Right.
family members, they really don't. And so I would go to Beverly Manor, I'd go to Manning, I'd go to Greenwood, Centennial on Greenwood, and I would go to Autumn Care here in Portsmouth. And
Right.
it was such a good experience, though. Where God says, if you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. And some of those places you did, those people they're a wealth of information, and they talked about things like the wars and things like that, a lot of things that maybe the average person would not talk about. And it would help you to grow,
It
you know.
helps it when we do what you just said, when we share
hmm
who we are with who they are, it helps
hmm
them also because so often they are forgotten. Like you said,
Yes,
people don't even
that's
go to
right.
visit. They don't have family. Many of them, the families have passed or their
hmm
siblings have passed, and
That's right.
so to reach out to them and to share a part of yourself, I think is just
Mhm.
a beautiful experience.
Yes, it is. You grow a lot from them. They like you, and they get so used to me. They would say, "Okay, when you coming tomorrow?" I said, "God willing, I'll be there." And
Right,
then
right.
there was a nurse one time that saw me. She said, "What do you do? Visit every nursing home in Portsmouth?" I said, "Not all of them, but
Just
I
a
did
few.
will some. The people that were on the prayer thing at Third Baptist, I go to see them mainly, But I see a
Right.
few. Because one of the men at the nursing homes asked me, one of the supervisors said, "Do you think you could see some of our other people?" Because some, like you just said, people don't come to see some of the people.
Right, right.
I saw people, not too many. But I share poems with them too. I wrote a poem about one of them one time. I'm not going to say it, but I did. Yeah, I got used to them. They talk. It's good company. Good
Mm-hmm.
company.
That's
hmm
true. What advice can you give to aspiring poets who may want to use their craft to inspire change or promote positive messages?
I think it's excellent. And I think, you can start places that they're part of already. They might be in church or they might be in a special social group or something like that. But listen to the people, because sincerely with me, I tell young people, what do your teachers say? What do your parents say? people can pick up on gifts that you have. You know, that's the way I see it.
That's true. That is true.
Mhm.
That is
And
true.
I would tell them to just keep at it, you know, to do it, to put your words down, you know, to journal and all like that, things you like or things that bother you. Because a lot of young people, they're bothered by some of the senseless, you know, violence and all too. They're like that. They have all kinds of things they want to say, and they have beautiful things to say. I love their words and all. Like the girl at President Biden's
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah, she just did a wonderful job. Wonderful. Say she and her mother and all. And just, all I can say is that believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Always. I tell young people. I tell them that. And if you say you're going to do something, you can do something, you believe in it, and you work toward it. Of course, God has to be in it too. He has to be
Yes,
in it.
yes. So
And if He's in it,
what do you hope that people who read your poems, what do you hope they
mhm.
take away from it?
uh, I think it's according to, like you said, I write so many different types of subjects. But the people that have told me things, they just say it makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
They feel good poems for the most part. Now, if they're ones that are very serious, like the one about the silent sisters, different things, because they say it makes them hurt, but it makes them more aware that maybe they'll do something. And I'll say this real quick. I was told by an elder at Third Baptist, a lady named Louise Hastings. She's a deacon. Anyway, they just stopped the Lot Perry 31 days of prayer. I had not participated in that before, but she gave me this number, so I've been calling in and all like that. And they were praying especially for girls and women who are being trafficked all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, and things like that.
Mm.
And so, of course, I wrote a poem about that because that's really, really bad. But, you know.
So it's just for those who are listening and wondering, what can I write about? What should I write? My poem. Life. You write about life, about
That's right. That's
that's
right. That's what I
every
said. That.
aspect of life.
That's what
Every
somebody else said.
yes, yes, every aspect of life, who we are
Uh,
as people, as children, as God's
mhm,
people, who black people, human
mhm.
people.
That's right.
And so as we prepare, to close this interview, which has just been so important for me to share,
Mhm,
have you share with our readers and our
mhm,
listeners a little bit
mhm.
about poetry. Do you have any upcoming projects or poems that you're excited about?
Mm. Well, like I said, it's usually, well, right now I'm working with the Lot Carey people. I'm not working with them, but I'm one of the listeners. And I wrote a poem about that situation since they say it's very dire, more so than I knew. And so I've written a poem about that. It's like things that go on, like I say, in life, those types of things will, move me. One
Mm-hmm.
time a neighbor had a little boy, and I saw a little boy, he was a baby. Anyway, I saw him when he first took his walk outside, and it touched my heart. I said, look at the little boy, Anyway, I told the lady, I said, I was looking at your little boy. He's come a little boy there marching around. And the lady said, yeah. I said, it almost took me to the pen to write something. She said, do it. Try to do it. And I was able to write a poem about the little boy. And I put it in her mailbox because she wasn't home, that day after I had gotten it. But she came back over here later, and she came back with some flowers, candy, a card. And she said, that poem you wrote about my son, I loved it. My husband loved it. And we read the words and we cried. And I said, it would make me cry. But seriously, it seems like the words touch the people's hearts, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them. And she said she would take the poem and show it to all her family members and all this kind of thing. And so, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm doing all that, but it seems to, touch a lot of people. And she was this Hispanic young lady and her husband. And this other lady was a pediatrician, and her husband was a doctor too. And they asked me to write something for them, and I wrote it. And I got the doorbell rang that day, and some parcel came, and you wouldn't believe how nice they were. I mean, beautiful flowers, box of candy. It was just one, and a beautiful note.
Oh,
And And she just said, I like your poetry, Miss Dudley. To me, the words are so powerful. It's like you said when I was saying the thing about they came and changed. She said, it's like people can see it, and feel it. And so they just love it.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure anybody who's listening to us, there's no doubt that you are and have been gifted by God to give to us to the different topics, the different themes. And I just want to thank you and encourage you to continue. I see why you have won so many, been gifted with so many awards, inducted into the International Platform Association. And I've got a whole list of things here that show that not just people who are listening, or not just me, and not just readers and listeners to the Journaling Guide, but people all over internationally, the world, value and appreciate your gift that you have and are willing to share with us in America. And so I thank you for.
Thank you.
Yes, you keep sending those poems in, okay?
Okay, God will, I certainly will.
Absolutely. God bless you, and thank you so much.
All right. God bless you too, and thank you. All right.
Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Every voice, every name is our song. With courage and faith we move along. Raise the banner high, let it touch the sky. With every story told, no dream will die. Together hand in hand we'll climb so high. Our legacy will sing.